first reading this morning is from Amos. If you'd like to follow along, it's on page 839 of your Pew Bible, beginning with verse 21. I despise your festivals, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. And the offerings of well-being of your fatted animals I will not look upon. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the melody of your harps. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. The word of the Lord. Please stand for the gospel acclamation.
When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and to go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, "Follow me." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. So as we continue to explore the book of Amos, today we read what is probably the most familiar verse in that book. I despise your festivals, God says, but let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness an ever-flowing stream. Now, this may not come as a comfort to those of us who are at confirmation camp this week, where for over an hour a day in the extreme heat, we had an in-depth study of how and why Lutherans worship. Now you tell us, they're thinking, God doesn't even like our worship. Well, that's oversimplifying things a bit. Actually, it's oversimplifying it a lot. God created us to be worshipful beings. God desires our worship and even gives us a Sabbath day each week to do it. But what God doesn't like is when our worship is disconnected from what we do the rest of the week. We're going to hear now from two of the senior high youth who spent time in Pittsburgh the week before last, exploring what it means for our worship to carry over into service in the world. We participated in a program called Mission on the Mon, which refers to the Monongahela River Valley, an area of Pittsburgh which once boomed with the steel industry and is now plagued by urban decay, a declining population, and a lack of significant work opportunities. We gathered with a group of youth from around Ohio and Pennsylvania to serve in this region. And I think these two young ladies are pretty awesome sermon illustrations for what it means for our worship to carry over into our lives throughout the week. So we're going to hear first from Megan Jamrock.
This summer marks my fourth and last senior high mission trip. I have been to Chicago, Northern Michigan, and New Orleans before traveling to Pittsburgh. Although I knew what to generally expect with these trips, Pittsburgh was unlike any other trip I had been on before. With 50 youth and 20 adult leaders from 15 southwestern Pennsylvania synods, as well as congregations in Indiana and Ohio, Mission on the Mon was a mixture of many different churches coming together to help God's kingdom. All 70 of us worked together to help clean up Pittsburgh and to help the locals who lived in the community. With service projects like cleaning up local bike trails, fixing local parks, helping rebuild porches, and repairing bikes at the local bike shop, Mission on the Mon provided a large variety of service work. Each person was placed in specific work teams based on preference and skill level. Because there were so many other churches, the majority of Hope kids were not placed in the same groups. For example, on my team, Team Lime, I only knew 2 people that went to Hope. This was unlike any other mission trip I had been on before, where Hope generally stayed and worked together. Mission on the Mon wanted to separate us to meet new people and to share God's love without the comfort of our familiar friends. Although the separation from friends was frustrating at first, meeting new people on Team Lime was one of the many ways I felt God through my week in Pittsburgh. Being separated from my friends allowed me to bond with other people from other churches. One example of this was one of my adult leaders who I worked with for the week. David was a special man who touched my heart. Because of his kind personality, I bonded with him quite easily. Every day I enjoyed painting with him at the local apartment building and listening to stories about his life. He shared with me some personal stories about his severe arthritis and how it had impacted him throughout his childhood. Although his health problem restricted him as a child, David did not allow this to change the way he lived. He shared with me how his faith in God got him to where he was today. Without his faith, David wasn't sure if he would have made it. Talking and becoming friends with David really showed me how important faith is in one's life. Without faith, what can you rely on? On top of my new friendship with David, I also felt God through the traditional style worship. Although I normally do not enjoy traditional church services, this week was different. Changing my worship pattern allowed me to focus more on the sermon and the real purpose of worship, God. I was also exposed to some beautiful hymns, one that will be shared later in the service called Lord's My Shepherd. Overall, I am so thankful I was able to travel to Pittsburgh this summer to experience God's word and share God's love. Although I didn't get to interact with many locals, I realized that not all mission trips need direct interactions to prove God's grace. Sometimes it takes a week of self-reflection and self-devotion to reconnect with God and to realize how beautiful the world is around us with all the unique and wonderful people. I'm so glad I was able to share my experience with all of you today.
My trip to Pittsburgh was very inspiring. I met new friends and I learned how to serve God and other people. The impact for me on this mission trip was how much people actually may need. I learned that instead of waiting for someone to come and tell you that something is wrong, you should go and find something that needs assistance. Most things aren't very noticeable. One thing I noticed while driving around the small town of McKeesport was all the trash that filled up the sidewalks and streets. I was surprised of how much there was. All I wanted to do was take a day and pick some of it up, but we had other work to do. It was at that time that I realized that the smallest of things can help the most, that if we take things step by step, we will reach our goal and make a big change. Living here in Farmington, I figured out that I can also pick up trash without going too far from home. If we take things little by little, it will reach a bigger outcome. I was very blessed to be able to work for God in the past 2 weeks. I didn't really know what to expect for the trip because it was my first, but now I know that I will definitely be doing some more. I had lots of fun serving the community, and not to mention the Pirates game in Kennywood Amusement Park. I feel great knowing that I was doing something for someone else's community. During the course of the week, my group helped pick weeds and plant mulch for our garden. I was also painting an apartment building for mentally disabled patients. I wasn't expecting to be able to see God while painting an apartment building, but that changed. I didn't know if I should have been worried about being in the same building as disabled people, but when we met some of the people living there, I wondered why they were there in the first place. They were just like normal people. Every once in a while, someone would come out of their room to go outside or simply just see what was going on in the hallways. When people came out, everyone was very friendly and welcoming. But one lady stuck out to me the most. By that point, my group was painting the stairways and she was walking down the stairs to go outside. But when she saw us working, she stopped and started asking us questions. We found out that she had been living there for almost 18 years, and she kept thanking us for painting and doing service. Later on that day, while I was washing paintbrushes, she came in to do laundry and we talked some more. She thought all of us were siblings, but the way she was so kind and comforting to practically strangers helped me realize that God has brought hope to people with disabilities. What I mean is that at first she was very shy and didn't talk much, but by the end of the day, she was very comfortable talking to us and she felt safe to talk with us. And I saw God trying to remind her that it was okay to talk to other people who aren't there on a daily basis. I've thought a lot about doing different things to help people in need, but knowing that I can make a change by signing up for mission trips like this is a great feeling. Being on this mission trip helped me realize that our hands can do God's work in the world. I want to be able to be as helpful as I can because I know I can do it. I have faith that I can make a difference in this world. Making a difference is important to me because I want to make sure that everyone has a place on this earth. One of my favorite quotes is, I want someone to look at me and say, because of you, I didn't give up. So to start off my journey of making a difference, I went on this mission trip this year and hopefully more to come.
Thank you, Megan and Amanda. Two of the ways I see these young people taking their experiences from this Pittsburgh trip and having it carry on, or just the very fact that Megan is hosting a blood drive, which is a lot of work, but she's literally giving the gift of life to people. Amanda got home from Pittsburgh and washed her clothes and got back in the car and came and helped to lead confirmation camp for a week. So these young women are truly inspirations to all of us to show that this week-long trip doesn't have to just be a mountaintop experience where they go and do some cool stuff and pat themselves on the back and then go back to life as usual, which is kind of a temptation with these trips. But I see these young people carrying on in the world their service and their love for God, which is really, really, truly inspiring to me. And so I think the challenge for all of us that hopefully we hear from them is for us to do the same. To not just pat ourselves on the back because we've got these awesome young people who are doing this great work in the world, but to also allow ourselves to be transformed and inspired through their words, to go out and be people who do good in the world all the time, not just occasional things. This is what God calls us to through Amos. Now, Amos was a herdsman. He was an expert at nosing out watering holes for his herd. And the Israelite landscape had countless ravines, but very few rivers. Most of the ravines are the beds of what is called a wadi. And when heavy rains come, the wadi fills up and the water flows through it. But in the drier seasons, the wadi bed is bone dry. So Amos knew well what it meant to lead his herd toward a ravine and peek in to find out, is there any water in there? Is this a stream? Or is it another dry wadi? And so he said, let justice flow down like an ever-flowing stream, not like that wadi that dries up, but like that river, that stream that's always flowing. That's what our justice is supposed to look like. Let justice, let righteousness be constant, like the air that we breathe. Once a journalist asked Mother Teresa, "Mother, why are you so holy?" Her answer was this: "You ask as if holiness were weird or abnormal. To be holy is to be normal. To be anything else is to be abnormal, like an ever-flowing stream." God has formed us to be both holy and merciful, to both worship and to act for justice. May we, as people of hope, take that hope to the world through the words and the songs and the meal and everything we do in worship, and through what we do the minute we leave this place. Amen.